My sister's family humiliated me at my own birthday, calling me the family failure. Her daughter even said, "Why do you even come if no one likes you?" A week later, I walked into their house and said one sentence that made them go silent. So here's the situation: this past week was my birthday, and I invited my sister, Mia, and her family over. It was supposed to be a nice celebration, but instead, my sister's daughter, Lily, humiliated me in front of everyone. She called me the family failure and asked why I even showed up to family events since no one liked me. That wasn't even the worst part, no one said anything to defend me. I just froze. A week later, I walked into their house to confront them, and I said one sentence that made them all fall silent. This is my story of betrayal, family dysfunction, and how I finally found my voice. I don't know what made me think it would be different this year. I should have known better. Birthdays are a tricky thing in my family. I'm Carly, and I've always been the one holding everything together, trying to keep the peace, mending broken bonds, carrying emotional weight when things got tough. Mia, my sister, was the exact opposite. Where I was cautious, reserved, and thoughtful, she was impulsive, loud, and unapologetically herself. Growing up, we were always on different pages, and I guess that never really changed. Mia has 3 kids, Lily, Max, and Ella. Lily, the oldest, is 14. Over the years, she's become increasingly distant, which I can't say I didn't understand. But what happened on my birthday? That was something different. Something I wasn't prepared for. The day started off like any other family gathering. My apartment, though small, was cozy and welcoming. I put in a lot of effort, arranging the food, setting up decorations, and even hiring a little band to play some soft music. It wasn't much, but it was enough for me. I wanted my birthday to be a celebration of moving forward, of not letting the past define me. I'd been through a lot, and after my divorce a couple of years ago, I had promised myself that I would start living for me, embracing the good moments, no matter how small they were. Mia showed up with her husband, Ryan, and the kids, looking as if they had just come from a photo shoot. Mia always had this air about her, put together on the outside, chaotic on the inside. Her kids, especially Lily, had a tendency to ignore me, and I always just assumed it was a typical teenage rebellion. I tried to be the bigger person, making small talk and offering to help with anything they needed. But as soon as we sat down for dinner, things took a sharp turn. It started with Lily. She was seated across from me, barely making eye contact, picking at her food. Everyone else was talking about trivial things. My parents were arguing about politics, as they always did, while Mia and Ryan chatted about work and the kids. I could feel this tension building up in the air, though. It was hard to ignore the fact that Mia wasn't even making an effort to engage with me. Then it happened. "Why do you even come if no one likes you?" Lily's voice was blunt, cutting through the already awkward silence. It was like a slap to the face. My breath caught in my throat, and I froze. The room fell silent. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, my parents, Mia, Ryan, even the kids. I was stunned. How could she say that? And why did everyone just sit there? No one defended me. No one even blinked. I looked at Mia, hoping for some kind of support, but she didn't say anything. She just glanced away, looking uncomfortable, like she was avoiding eye contact with me. Lily wasn't finished. "You're the failure of the family, Carly. You've always been. Look at your life, divorced, living alone. You don't even belong here," Lily continued, her tone growing more aggressive with each word. I felt my face burn. There was a lump in my throat that wouldn't go away, and I had to fight back tears. I had spent so many years trying to keep this family together, trying to be the one who made things right, but here I was, the one being vilified. Trying to keep my voice steady, I finally spoke, my words trembling. "Lily, that's not a nice thing to say. We're family. You don't have to, you don't get it, do you?" Lily interrupted, her voice sharp. "No one wants you around, Carly. You're just a reminder of what went wrong in the family." Her words hit me harder than I wanted to admit. I looked at Mia once more, waiting for her to step in. But she didn't. Mia just sat there, staring at her plate, not even looking up. I could feel the weight of the years, the unresolved issues, the years of me trying to hold it all together while they tore each other apart, finally crashing down on me. I had always been the one who tried to keep the peace. I had always been the one to go out of my way to make sure everyone felt heard. But in that moment, I realized that I was the only one who cared. I tried to laugh it off, but my voice cracked. "I think I'll just step outside for a bit," I said, barely audible. I excused myself and went to the back porch, feeling the cool night air hit my face. I had to get away. I needed to breathe. The night dragged on. I stayed outside for a while, unable to return to the table. I didn't know what else to do. The humiliation was crushing, and the silence that followed made it even worse. No one came out to check on me. No one even seemed to care. When I finally went back inside, it felt like everyone was pretending like nothing had happened. It was as if Lily's words had just evaporated into thin air, and they were all too uncomfortable to address it. I couldn't stay in that house any longer. I told Mia I was leaving early, and she barely reacted. I didn't even wait for her response before I grabbed my things and left. The next week, the next few days were a blur of emotions: anger, disbelief, hurt. I didn't speak to Mia, didn't respond to any texts from my parents. I was done trying to be the peacekeeper. I realized I couldn't keep sacrificing my dignity for the sake of people who didn't even seem to care. A week later, Mia called me. Her voice was quiet, almost hesitant. "Can we talk?" she asked, sounding almost apologetic. I agreed, but only because I needed answers. I needed to understand how everything had fallen apart so quickly. I drove to Mia's house that afternoon, dreading the conversation ahead. When I walked in, Mia was sitting on the couch, looking tired. Her kids were nowhere in sight, which was probably for the best. It felt like there was an unspoken weight hanging between us. "So, do you want to explain to me what happened last week?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, but I could hear the edge in it. Mia hesitated before speaking. "Carly, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to get that bad." I raised an eyebrow. "Really? Because you did nothing to stop it." "I know," Mia said, rubbing her temples. "But you have to understand, we've been struggling for a long time. And I don't know how to say this, but Lily's been really angry. She sees you as a failure, and I don't know how to fix it." I felt my stomach twist. "So you're saying it's all my fault?" "No, that's not what I meant," Mia said quickly, but her words were hollow. "It's just, you've always been the perfect one, Carly. And we've all felt, I don't know, resentful of you. It's like you've always had it together, and the rest of us just fall apart." I stared at her, my heart pounding. For so many years, I had tried to help them, tried to fix everything, to be a good sister, a good daughter. But it was clear now that it had never been enough. It wasn't enough for Mia, for Lily, for anyone. "I didn't ask for any of this," I said, my voice rising. "I never asked to be the one who had to fix things. I never asked to be the one who had to carry the weight of this family." Mia looked at me, her face filled with guilt. "I'm sorry, Carly. I don't know how we got here. I don't know how to make it right." I looked at her, then slowly stood up. "I don't need your apology, Mia. I need you to understand that I've given everything I have to this family, and it's never been enough. Maybe it's time I stopped trying." Before she could say anything, I walked out, leaving the house and the family I had once tried so hard to hold together behind me. As I stepped outside, I knew I wasn't going back, not for any birthday, not for any family gathering. For the first time in years, I felt like I was finally taking control of my own life. I didn't feel relief at first, just emptiness. The drive home was long and quiet, the hum of the car's engine the only sound in the space that now felt too big for me. I had left Mia's house, but I couldn't shake the feeling of a weight on my chest, pressing down with every mile I put between myself and the family I had tried so hard to keep together. As I parked my car in the driveway, I sat there for a long time. The headlights cast long shadows across the empty street, and I couldn't help but think about how much of my life had been spent trying to be everything for everyone else. Trying to make my parents proud, trying to be the sister Mia never had, trying to be the kind of aunt that Lily could count on, only to be rejected in the end. For what felt like the first time in years, I realized I didn't know who I was anymore. I was just tired. I went inside, locked the door behind me, and sat down on my couch. I let out a shaky breath, and it took all I had not to cry. There were no more tears left. I had been running on empty for so long that I didn't know how to fill myself up anymore. There was a part of me that wanted to call Mia, to give her another chance, to tell her I was still willing to work on this, but I couldn't. Not after everything. Not when I knew deep down that I had nothing left to give. I spent the next few days in a kind of numb fog. I didn't return anyone's calls, Mia's, my parents', nobody's. Every time my phone buzzed with a text message, I just ignored it. I had learned the hard way that no matter how many times I tried to keep the peace, it was never enough. I had given my entire self to that family, and in the end, I was still the outsider, the scapegoat. The only people who seemed to care about me were my friends, those few who hadn't disappeared into the background of my life as I spent all my energy trying to fix things with my family. They'd check in on me, invite me out for coffee, or just sit with me and listen as I vented. They were the ones who helped me put things into perspective. They reminded me of who I was before the weight of my family's expectations crushed me. But even with their support, I still couldn't shake the feeling of rejection. I kept thinking about Lily's words. "You're the family failure." Those words haunted me like a ghost I couldn't shake. It wasn't just her, the whole situation, the silence from everyone else, it all felt like a slap in the face. A week passed. I spent it mostly in isolation, figuring out what I needed to do next. I had a little part-time business that kept me busy and allowed me to focus on something that was just mine. But when the silence of that week began to settle, I realized that avoiding my family was only giving them more power. They didn't even have to try to hurt me, they just had to do nothing, and I'd do the rest of the work for them by retreating further into myself. I had to do something. The question was, what? That's when it hit me. I needed to confront them. Not just Mia, not just Lily, but all of them. I couldn't keep pretending that what happened wasn't important. It was important. It was my dignity. It was my self-worth. But how? What could I possibly say to make them understand? To make them feel the hurt that I had been carrying for years? The thought of seeing them again made my stomach churn, but I knew I couldn't let it go. I was done being the silent one, the one who suffered in silence for the sake of family unity that had never truly existed. I took a deep breath, gathered my thoughts, and made the call. "I'll be there in an hour," I said, voice steady despite the nerves swirling in my stomach. It was a simple text to Mia, asking if I could come by her house to talk. I didn't want to waste any more time. I was done being the person who always waited for someone else to act. It was time I took control. When I arrived at Mia's house, the familiar feeling of dread settled over me. The house was exactly how I remembered it, cluttered, chaotic, and full of the unspoken tension that had defined our family dynamic for as long as I could remember. Ryan was there, and the kids were scattered about, doing their own things, completely oblivious to the storm that was about to hit. Mia was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone, her usual aloofness a shield. The second she saw me, her face softened, but there was still that familiar tension in the air. "You came," Mia said, her voice uncertain, but there was a glimmer of something else, regret, maybe? I didn't respond right away. I just stood there, feeling every inch of my own frustration bubble up to the surface. "I'm not here to argue, Mia," I said, my voice calm but firm. "I'm here because I can't keep pretending that everything's okay. I can't keep hiding behind this idea that you'll eventually change, or that we'll all somehow fix things with time." Mia put her phone down and looked up at me, her expression unreadable. I know things have been rough. I get that. Do you? I asked. Do you really get it, Mia? Because it doesn't feel like it. It doesn't feel like anyone in this family actually gets it. I've tried to make things work, but every time I take one step forward, it feels like I get knocked back 3. Mia shifted uncomfortably on the couch. I could tell she was trying to think of something to say, something to defend herself with, but I wasn't going to give her the chance to deflect anymore. I'm done apologizing for things that aren't my fault. I'm done being the person who always has to carry everything. I'm not going to keep coming to family gatherings, to birthdays, to holidays, just to be humiliated, ignored, or dismissed. And I'm certainly not going to pretend that things are okay when they're not. Mia opened her mouth to speak, but I raised my hand, silencing her. I wasn't done yet. I deserve more than that. I deserve respect, just like everyone else in this family. And I know I haven't always been perfect, but I've tried, Mia. I've tried so damn hard to keep this family from falling apart. And now, I'm done. I could see the shift in her face, the slight flicker of realization that maybe, just maybe, I was right. I was done being the one who had to sacrifice my dignity for the sake of family harmony. The hurt was too much to ignore anymore. She didn't say anything. There was no apology. There was no promise of change. And maybe that's what I needed to hear. Because at that moment, I realized that I didn't need her apology or anyone else's. I needed to move forward with my life, with or without them. And that was the most freeing thing I'd ever allowed myself to feel. As I stood there, waiting for Mia's response, I felt an uncomfortable silence stretch between us. For a few moments, she just stared at me, like she was trying to process everything I had said. I was proud of myself for holding firm, for finally saying everything I needed to say. But part of me was still bracing for some form of apology, something to make all the pain of the last few weeks feel like it had been worth it. But no. Mia didn't speak. Instead, she just sank back into the couch, her face a mix of guilt and frustration. The weight of the unspoken was thick. I don't know what to say, Mia admitted finally, her voice small. You're right. I've been a terrible sister. I don't know how to make it right. I never really understood how much you've been holding all these years. I let her words hang in the air, but I wasn't about to let her off the hook just yet. It's not enough to just say it, Mia. You can't just apologize and expect everything to be fine. You've been letting this go on for years. All of you have. And I've been the one who's been bending over backwards, trying to keep it together, trying to make sure everyone feels heard, even when they didn't deserve it. Her eyes dropped to the floor, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I saw her vulnerable, broken almost. But I wasn't about to soften. Not yet. I've spent my life being the responsible one. The one who cleans up the mess. But no one ever checks to see if I'm okay. No one ever asks me how I feel. And I'm tired, Mia. I'm just so tired of being the one who's always expected to fix everything while everyone else just gets to do whatever they want without consequence. Mia was quiet for a long time. I could see her biting her lip, the wheels in her head turning. She finally looked back up at me, her eyes wide, like something had shifted in her. Carly, I didn't realize how much I was hurting you. I didn't. I guess I've been too wrapped up in my own life to see what you've been going through. But I can't change the past, can I? No, I said, shaking my head. You can't. But you can change how you treat me moving forward. There was a long pause before I added, and if you don't, I won't keep coming back to this. I won't keep letting myself be the punching bag. You have to decide, Mia. Are you going to be a part of my life, or are you going to keep pretending everything's fine when it's not? She didn't answer right away. But I could see the realization in her eyes. She finally got it. For the first time, Mia saw me as a person who deserved respect, not just someone who was always there to pick up the pieces when things fell apart. I turned to leave, but as my hand reached the door handle, Mia stood up. I want to try, Carly. I really do. I can't promise I'll be perfect, but I'll try. I won't make excuses anymore. It was the most sincere she'd sounded in years. But I still wasn't convinced. I'll believe it when I see it, I said, my voice steady. Actions, Mia. It's all about actions. I left her house without looking back, the door closing behind me with a soft click. And for the first time in ages, I felt lighter. It wasn't an instant fix, but the first real conversation we'd had in years was a step forward, however small. The next week, I didn't hear from Mia immediately after our conversation, and that was okay. I needed space to process, to see if things would really change. For once, I wasn't willing to rush into anything. I had learned that the hard way. But then, one afternoon, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Mia. Mia, I've been thinking a lot about what you said. I know I've failed you, and I know I have a lot of making up to do. I want to start over. Can we meet for coffee? I felt a surge of something, hope, maybe, or maybe just cautious optimism. I could hear the sincerity in her message. I hadn't expected her to come around so quickly, but it seemed like she was finally getting the message. This time, things had to be different. I agreed to meet her the next day at a cafe we used to go to when we were younger. When I walked in, Mia was already seated at a table in the corner, her hands folded in front of her, looking a little nervous. It wasn't a scene I'd seen before, not from her. She stood when she saw me and gave me a hesitant smile. I'm glad you came, she said softly, and it was clear she wasn't just saying it to fill the silence. She meant it. We sat down, and for a while, neither of us said much. I didn't need to fill the silence with meaningless chatter. I just needed to see if she meant what she said. Finally, Mia spoke. I know I've messed up. I've been horrible, and I'm sorry. I know that apology doesn't fix everything, but I want you to know that I'm trying. I'm going to be better. Her words were simple, but they carried weight. It was the first time I had ever heard her truly take responsibility for her actions without deflecting, without making excuses. I could feel the sincerity in her tone, and it felt like a moment of real change, not just for her but for us both. I'm not asking you to forgive me right away, she continued. I just want you to know that I see you now. I see everything you've done for this family, and I'm sorry for taking you for granted. I looked at her, unsure of how to respond. Part of me still wanted to lash out, to let her know how much pain she had caused, but another part of me wanted to give her a chance. I wanted to believe that people could change. I can't promise things will be perfect, Mia, I said slowly, but I'm willing to try. But you need to understand something, I'm done being the one who fixes everything. I can't be that person anymore. If we're going to move forward, it has to be equal. No more excuses. Mia nodded. I get it. I really do. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe. It wasn't a grand gesture or an overnight fix, but it was a step. A real one. A few weeks later, it was slow, but Mia was trying. She was making more of an effort to reach out, to check in, to actually spend time with me, rather than just showing up when it was convenient for her. There was a marked difference in how she communicated with me, less dismissiveness, less defensiveness. It wasn't perfect, but I could see the effort. As for Lily, she wasn't as quick to come around. The resentment still lingered, and I knew it would take time for her to understand. But she wasn't as cruel as before. There were moments, brief moments, when I saw a flicker of softness in her eyes, like maybe, just maybe, she could see me as something more than a failure. The real change came when Mia took the initiative to organize a small family dinner at her house, just her, Ryan, the kids, and me. I hadn't expected it, but it was her way of trying to make amends, of showing me that she wanted to rebuild what had been broken. When I walked into Mia's house that night, there was no tension in the air. No awkward silences. Instead, there was laughter, light conversation, and a feeling that maybe, just maybe, we were beginning to repair the years of damage. Lily didn't say much to me, but she didn't say anything cruel either. And for the first time in years, I could tell that things might just be okay. Not perfect, but okay. It wasn't the grand revenge I'd imagined in my darker moments. There was no fiery confrontation or dramatic fallout. But in the quiet, steady effort to rebuild, I realized that the real victory wasn't about making them feel the hurt I had endured, it was about reclaiming my own sense of self-worth and refusing to let their mistakes define me. In the end, that was the most satisfying revenge of all.